to Tim McManus. How are you today, Tim?
Doing well, Ty. How about yourself?
Doing well. Appreciate you coming on with us today. We've been talking about the Eagles as we start to look at their roster now, heading into the draft. And one little concern I had, and you could always, you correct me whenever I'm wrong. When it comes to some of the positions where they may be going to young players, such as safety with Sidney Brown, linebacker with Trotter to a lesser degree, Keely Ringo outside, it felt like last year they had a different level of maybe competition at those spots going in. And my only concern, Tim, is that these guys would almost be anointed to spots and not earn it. Do you think Howie has a little bit more work to do to just make sure they have a little bit extra depth at corner just in case, or a little bit more at safety just in case Ringo and Brown, for example, aren't ready to be NFL starters?
No, I think it's a great point, but it's important to recognize where we are sort of in the team-building calendar. And even though we're past sort of the first wave of free agency, we've seen Howie Roseman in the past sort of build throughout the course of the year. Oftentimes there's trades right before the start of the season. Of course, they have the draft. I think there's still some parts to be added before the Eagles end up playing. And I would, especially point to safety there. When I'm looking at the roster, that's the one that really jumps out to me. And if you heard Justin Reed talking after he ended up signing his free agent deal, he made it known that the Eagles were right there involved in it. They just couldn't come up to the number because of what they said was their cap limitation. So it shows you that they're out there looking for a veteran safety presence. One of the messages that was coming out of the NovaCare at the time that they traded C.J. Gardner-Johnson was that they did want to give a little bit of a pathway to Sidney Brown, at least allow him to compete. But I still don't see, with a championship caliber roster, Roseman sitting pat and not at least giving himself some extra out. So I think there's still work to be done there.
Tim, there's been quite a few additions over the last week. Which of the free agent additions are you most intrigued by?
I think Ojulari. No, a lot of the one-year deals that have come in have, I don't want to say underwhelming, but you're like, yeah, maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. You can tell by the way that they're placing the one-year bets that they're not pot committed to the player. But somebody like Ojulari has the upside, I think, where you can envision him becoming a part of Vic Fangio's edge rush rotation, where you could say, okay, now if they have Jalix Hunt and they have Nolan Smith and Ojulari, maybe Uche works out, maybe he doesn't. You can see sort of the rotation coming into focus. A lot of these guys, there's an injury history or a level of inconsistency that has kept their overall price tag down in free agency, and that applies to him as well. But I think in terms of guys with upside that could end up being impact players that you look back maybe halfway through the season, like, man, I can't believe they got them on such a low deal. That's a number one candidate for me.
Tim, looking at the offensive line, I was a little bit shocked, and I was talking about this with Andrew earlier in the show, about Fred Johnson, only because he got another one-year deal, and he was so good for them when they really needed it, especially on the left side for Mailata when he went on IR with that hamstring injury. Are you surprised that he isn't back, given that he only got a one-year deal with Jacksonville?
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. And I agree. Like, in his spot duty overall, performed pretty well. And somebody that really made some serious strides under Jeff Stoutland. I guess the underlying theme of all of this is, in Stoutland we trust. I mean, he's just had a way of developing guys, and just think of like where Mekhi Becton was and the fact that he had to switch positions, and then he ends up just being part of this awesome offensive front, that there's a built-in faith, I think, that they'll add somebody, and I do believe that the Eagles will add, whether it's a kind of a lower-level deal in free agency, and then through the draft, we always know that they're looking at the trenches. And I think that Stoutland has earned the confidence that, he's going to make it work with what they've got. And so, in one sense, when you're paying so many of your offensive line starters such big money, and Cam Jurgens is coming next, I mean, obviously you're going to have to go low in some other areas, and so I think that's what's happening here. But I do have faith that whoever comes in, Stoutland will make the most of it.
Which young player, Tim, are you most interested to see that now have an elevated opportunity?
Jalix Hunt for me, and I think that they're going to need first of all, Nolan Smith to continue his elevation. And then Jalix Hunt was, you're really that first year, Andrew, there wasn't a whole lot of expectations, as you know, attached to him. It's like, all right, well, here's a developmental player, but it also, you sort of heard through the grapevine that this was a favorite of Fangio and that he's the one that helped push that pick along. And he's proven to have a very good eye, including with guys like Zach Vaughn. And Hunt, I think also to a lesser degree, showed the kind of promise that he has in year one. And so here's a great opportunity for a young ascending player to take on a bigger role, especially now that somebody like Josh Sweat is not part of the rotation anymore.
We're speaking with Tim McManus. He does a tremendous job covering the Eagles for ESPN.com. Brandon Graham retires this week. I know you were down there. And, you've been obviously, he's been there basically the whole time you've been there. You've been covering him. What will it be like, you think, next season with BG not in the building after being there for 15 seasons?
Well, something tells me he's still going to be in the building.
Well, I should say as a player. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I think he's not going to go too far, and we'll still hear that voice and that laugh and his presence felt maybe on the sidelines out at practice and that kind of thing. But you're right, Ty. I started covering the team in 2010, and that was his rookie year. And so all I've known is BG as a player in there. And, there's like these distinct memories. And one is like, so I'm fresh on the beat, 2010. It's at Lehigh training camp. Graham shows up, and there's a group of reporters that are standing outside of the training facility at Lehigh, and he comes by and he dabs everybody up. He's got a big smile on his face, and he's laughing. And one of the reporters joked, like, yeah, well, that's going to go away. That's going to change pretty soon, basically his, the way that he looked at the media and being so friendly. And he's like, I'm going to do it different. And then you just go back to his farewell press conference the other day, and what did he do? He came down, and he made sure that he dabbed every reporter up and every person that was in that auditorium, same big smile. And as we know, there was a lot of adversity in between year one and year 15. He got written off in this city. He had a slow start. Everybody was comparing him to Earl Thomas, wondering why, as this guy's thriving with the Legion of Boom, why we have this guy who's just a rotational player or not able to get onto the field. And to kind of see that ascension, I mean, there's nothing really to compare it to. Graham made himself an iconic figure and did it all while carrying himself in a way that not many athletes can really rise to, and the way that he was able to sort of keep that spirit about him, where there's a lot of players who come through Philadelphia, and if they're getting criticized early, they get deflated pretty quickly. But Graham was very unique like that. He was absolutely essential to that locker room and lifting everybody up when they were at their lowest moments. So there's a huge void when it comes to that. But, nobody did it like Brandon Graham.
Yeah, Tim, I know you and BG were pretty tight, but I know it's early, but we know that Howie Roseman has been known to maneuver the draft board. On March 20th, what's your sense? What do you think the Eagles do at 32? Does he stand pat, trade down, trade up? What's your read?
Well, he's not a guy to really stand pat. He doesn't do it. He doesn't do it too often. So I guess if you're putting a bet on it, you bet that he'll move. We saw when they had that last position in the first round a handful of years ago, where they traded out and they let Baltimore come in and take Lamar Jackson, and that proves to be good value if there's somebody looking for a quarterback. Well, who knows how it shakes out this time? But if there is a circumstance like that and Roseman sees the value, you can be sure that he'll be looking to take it. But yeah, I mean, things are so fluid. Even in like the top 15, it's hard to say who's going to be there and what their board's going to look like by the time they get all the way to 32. But we know that they build through the offensive and defensive lines. It's always a priority for this group. And if they see some value in the trenches or elsewhere, they'll look to move up a few spots. If they see that a quarterback is, a team wants to come in at 32, they can move back. So as we know with Roseman, options are on the table. He is not averse to trading. He's about as active GM when it comes to that.
Well, Tim, it's fascinating. We're already like a month away from the draft. It feels like the Super Bowl just ended. It's right on top of us. Appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Thanks, Tim.
Always a pleasure, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. That was Tim McManus on the Comcast Business Hotline. He does a tremendous job covering the Eagles for ESPN.com. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate it. If you want more of this content, make sure you like and subscribe. And you know you can do that kind of over here if you want more of the best show ever.